Well, thank you for talking to us today,
Mon
interrupting
plaisir.
your rehearsal. You needn't have dressed up, really.
Well, no, I always dress like this. I always wear my good clothes once a week, whether I want to or not.
You're rehearsing for your British and European dates, well, for your world tour eventually. How much freshness or enthusiasm or whatever can you bring to that kind of preparation for your zillionth tour?
Well, it's always a bit different, depending on what you're doing, you know. I mean, this is only my second time out on the road as me, so it's still exciting. It's still good fun to do it. To see if I can get the band to remember the songs. Little thing,
Always
little
a challenge.
finer points,
yes.
yeah. But that aspect of it, the actual fact that it's my tour rather than Genesis. I mean, to be honest, although it might seem from an observer's point of view, Christ, they're going out on tour again. Even with Genesis, it's such a long time between tours that it's, you know, it's still a bit of fun to do it, really.
Your new solo album is No Jacket Required. That your first solo album, Face Value, was sort of fuelled, I believe, by the breakup of your marriage, and it was sort of outpouring of that. Now, since you recently married for the second time, is the new album sort of in a more positive spirit as a result of that?
Yeah, I think so. I wanted to do sort of, I like constant change anyway, that's why I do all these other things. And I wanted to try and do something that was a bit more different for me, you know, a bit more up, a bit more dance-orientated. And lyrically, you know, I mean, I tend to sort of write about people rather than, you know, science fiction or stories. So, yeah, I try to make it as different as possible. But it is, I guess, if you look at the lyrics, I mean, it's not so much I was miserable and now I'm incredibly happy. It's just, they're just lyrics. Trying to think about something actually. Some of them are a little sarcastic, you know, but basically I'm a happy bloke, and I hope it comes over in the music that I'm not as bloody miserable as I used to be.
Inevitably, to talk a little bit about Genesis. I mean, they were originally public school chums who formed a band, and you came along about, what, the time of the third album or something like that. So were you the odd one out? You're not a public school boy.
No, I'm not. I was a grammar school boy and stage school boy. I have some of that. Yeah, I guess I was a class clown a bit when I came in, because they all knew each other, and I was they were sort of the writers of the band, and I was the musician, if you like. And we sort of met in the middle a bit over the years. But yeah, I was in 1970, so it was a long, long time ago.
It certainly was. How do you look back on Genesis in the 70s? I mean, all that, you know, kind of art rock and excess and stuff like that. I mean,
well, it's a bit embarrassing, some of it, you know, but it's a lot of what was going on in the 70s, really. I mean, it's too easy to look back on it now and assume that we were the only people that were doing it, and it was out of step with the rest of the world, because it wasn't really. I mean, there's lots of things that embarrass one, you know, in retrospect. I mean, the old flower mask and just the hamminess of it all. But, you know, it seemed good fun at the time, so.
Oh, it was trailblazing stuff at that time, wasn't it? When punk came along in sort of 76, 77, I mean, Genesis became almost, it was the word, you know, it was almost a dirty word. It was sort of Genesis, or they were that group who symbolised everything that punk wasn't. I mean, did it shake you up? Did it change your musical thinking? Or?
Oh, I think it has to have done. I viewed it that basically there was a lot of bands like the Jethro Tulls, the Yeses, the Genesis, the Moody Blues, Floyd, ELP, that were around and were, you know, to be honest, I don't like any of those groups. I mean, to be honest, there are certain aspects of Yes. I like the old Yes, the original Yes. But I don't really like those bands, and I was always very annoyed that we were put in the same area as them, because we weren't virtuoso musicians like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and people like that. We were just people that wrote songs. Unfortunately, we had a sort of name, and we became more related to sort of the theatre side of rock. So when the punk thing started, it was like, you know, punk came along, shook the tree with all these bands on, and some of the bands fell to the ground, you know. Fortunately, some of them sort of paid the cost, if you like, paid the price. But I think we just carried straight on. I mean, we basically just write songs, and therefore are you know, conscious of any changes around us. And you know, like, I don't read the same. Well, I don't read many books anyway, but I don't listen to the same kind of music. I don't do the same kind of things I did 10 years ago. So obviously things are going to change, you know. So I think it's very, very healthy. I mean, any kind of change is healthy.
And I mean, the drummer is always kind of typecast as the one who's maybe, you know, not quite as bright as all the rest, probably doesn't write the songs and things like that. So, I mean, that made it doubly, I don't know, unusual or striking that you sort of came from behind and took over on lead vocals and things when Peter Gabriel left. And it's a hell of a role to fill, wasn't it? Because he was so theatrical, the costumes and the partly shaven head and all that, and you were sort of real, well, Mr. Normal compared to that, weren't you?
We were worried more about what people thought of the band, you know, than how. I mean, we knew that the band had always been 5 writers, and so with one guy gone, it was 4 writers. But to the public, they considered Peter to be the figurehead of the group, which visually he was, of course, but musically, which is where we all really stemmed from, it was very much a democratic across-the-board thing, you know, one man's ideas against another man's ideas. So we knew that we could put it together, providing people didn't have too many preconceived ideas. And of course, coming from that underdog situation with an album like Trick of the Tail, which at the time was very fresh for us, it surprised a lot of people, you know. I mean, a lot of people said that I sound like Peter, whereas in fact, a lot of the time I was singing with Peter on some of those early records. I mean, I can only assume that that is why people said I sounded like him, because there was certainly no conscious effort on my behalf to sound like him. You know, I just opened my mouth and I sang, and if it sounded like him, that's unfortunate, but that's a fact of life, you know.
We talked to Spandau Ballet recently, and their drummer was saying that he's a great admirer of yours and that he always thought it must be incredibly difficult, I mean, from his own experience, to sing and play drums at the same time, that he'd tried to do just backing vocals and he was constantly going off mic and things like that.
Well, I used to do it at school. See, in my school group, I was always the singer. And so I conquered that coordination problem a long time ago. The reason I don't play drums and sing in Genesis is because it just looks so awful. I mean, it's Chris Curtis and the Searchers and people like that. Honey Landry and people. You know, they used to do it and it just doesn't look good.
No.
You know, in a 20,000 seat auditorium, you've got to see the singer.
Right.
And if he's hidden behind this barrage of drums and cymbals, you don't see it, and it just looks a bit suspect. So I was pushed out to the front. I mean, I pushed myself out to the front because I realised... It
must have been terrifying.
Yeah, because I didn't have any of that around me, you know, it was just suddenly this thin
Did you
mic
have to
stand.
learn to dance or to project yourself?
Yeah, well, I said that I would not wiggle my bum for anybody. I had to, I kind of had to feel my way into it. I mean, for a while, I've still only just got into taking the microphone off a stand, you know, because to me, that microphone stand has become my drum kit. And
something to hide behind.
Yeah, I'm a bit, although I'm not quite as thin as a microphone stand, it gets worse as the months go on, but no, that's my security blanket, so it is a big difference. So also hearing what a band sounds like from that position, because it also sounds, you know, you're involved in the sound of the music when you're playing the drums, and then when you go out front, you're just hearing the band from behind you, and it's a lot of adjusting to take into consideration.
Do you not inevitably prefer solo work, though? Really,
sure.
Honestly and truly?
I prefer solo work. If I had to make a choice, I would probably do that. But
why carry on with Genesis, then?
Well, we don't have to make a choice, you see. If I had to make a choice, then I would say, okay, my own solo things. But because no one sort of says, well, you've got to choose this or the other, I enjoy doing the Genesis thing because it's this change thing again. It's different. It's like, instead of having just all the responsibility, I mean, you catch me at a moment now, for instance, where I am trying to whip this band into shape that hasn't, you know, played my songs for 2 years and has been doing other things, and, you know, trying to get that together. With Genesis, we just know each other so well that we come back, and it's instinctive, a lot of the stuff. And that is good fun, and it's I mean, I know it shouldn't be, it sounds flippant that it's good fun. I enjoy throwing a musical idea to other people, and then to interpret it, and then, you know, it's a group, and it's very different from being on your own. And that difference makes the whole thing interesting. The best songs or aspects of it? Or,
yeah, what particular pieces, I don't know, particular songs, particular achievements?
I mean, the most important sort of punctuation, if you like. I mean, In the Air was very important. And obviously, face value, the album being widely accepted as a good album was very important to me. I think Against All Odds, purely because, not of the video, but because of the fact that it was a #1 record in America, which was a big, you know, it was a big step forward for me. I'm only Phil from Hounslow, you know, and yet I'd recorded this #1 record, which was a great feeling. But there are just being able to do something on your own, and for people to like it is reward for me. I mean, just to sort of do something that I do naturally, and for people to say, "Oh, that's nice," yeah.
It's funny you should say you're only Phil from Hounslow, because I was going to ask you actually, it brings home, I mean, the fact that you've been nominated for several Grammys this year and things like that. I mean, you are really big, aren't you, and really successful, and presumably really rich as well. I mean,
do you know, yes, okay, well.
Once you reach that stage, not having quite got there oneself yet, does it, I mean, are you ever inclined to sort of sneak away from it? I mean, I find it stressful. I mean, do you inevitably, I mean, do you just get used to increasing degrees of success, recognition, whatever?
To be quite honest, and I know everybody says this, but I don't often think about it. I mean, to me, I'm just as successful as the last record was. You know, there's no foregone conclusion, hey man, I'll bring a record out, everyone's going to listen to it and buy it. You know, that never comes into it. And I'm constantly, I've lived all my life with that feeling of, you know, listen man, you better save what you got, because, you know, this is going to burst, you know. I mean, when you grow old, too old to go out on stage and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've never lived in the style of rich musicians. You know, I mean, I've got a nice house, I've got a car that I've had for 5 years, you know, I don't change it every year, nothing like that.
You obviously don't wear Anthony Price suits.
No, I've only got one Anthony Price suit. Actually, no, I don't think it's Anthony Price. In fact, I went in there to buy an Anthony Price one, and they didn't have one my size, so I didn't buy it. No, I don't think anyway that I have any of the obvious trappings of whatever comes with whatever I've got. You know. But no, I mean, it's all. There's so much to do that I don't often think about what I've done, if you know what I mean.
Can we talk briefly about some of the other people that you've worked with? What's Frida from ABBA like? It's very hard to imagine somebody like that as a real person somehow.
Well, she's very sweet, actually. Well, I've not seen her for a couple of years, but I mean, when I started working with her, I mean, I was a bit in awe. I mean, whether you like ABBA or not, which I like some of their songs. I like some of their earlier stuff. Some of their songs. I mean, I was never an ABBA fan. But, you know, when she's standing there, she exudes, she has an aura, you know, because you know how wealthy she is, and you know how incredibly powerful that band was, albeit in Sweden or wherever. But, so when I was working with her, she was very insecure because she'd been told what to do in ABBA by Benny and Bjorn, and there was a few. I mean, I would go in there and stir up the hornet's nest because Stig Anderson wanted Benny and Bjorn's song, a song which was not yet written. He wanted it on the album because he wanted to keep it in the family. And I was saying, well, listen, if the song is not written, I don't give a toss who wrote it. If it's not written yet, and it's not going to go on the album, you know, unless we like it, it's not a foregone conclusion. So little things like that. I mean, she was strutting, she was saying, quite right, quite right. And I think with the first album, she gained a lot of strength as a person, to the point where now I don't think ABBA exists, not only because of her, but because everybody's decided to do it. And she's found a lot of just inner strength and sort of being able to actually, you know, not be told what to do, but say, you do it, it's your album, you know, you sing the way you're supposed to sing, the way you want to sing. But she is actually a very sweet person. It's only that antiseptic sting of Sweden that tends to everyone to sort of be very emotionless, you know. And I suppose it's hard to sort of think of them being nice people.
What about Adam Ant? Because you did some work with him. I mean, you're obviously, as a solo artist, your kind of material. I mean, it's a very classy act, and you do quite thoughtful lyrics and things. I mean, was it not just a bit dumb?
No.
Do you not find, you know, I mean, musically, to play around with?
I like everyone I work with. Well, fortunately, see, I only actually work with people I like. It actually works that way round, rather than I grow to like people. I mean, Adam I had only met once, and that was on tour. I was on tour, he was on tour, we had a night off, and he asked me to come down and see him, to meet him and Marco, who was a fantastic character, with a view to producing a single, because he liked, funnily enough, the Frida single, I Know There's Something Going On, and he wanted me to do something like that for him. So I just, again, you know, interesting combination. I mean, when people, I thought, you know, when people think that I'm working with Adam Ant, they're going to say, what the hell is this? And go and at least check it out and see if it's worthwhile. So we went to Sweden, funnily enough, to record it. excuse me, in the same studio. And it was a lot of laughing. I mean, I enjoy sessions that are actually good fun to do. You know, I mean, if there's a happy environment, then the music's going to sound at least, you know, at least it's got more of a chance of breathing instead of just sort of lying there dead on the floor.
I take it as a happy environment when you and Robert Plant get together to work.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in that particular situation, we didn't really know what each other were like. I mean, I imagine that he ate people, you know, like the Zeppelin stories that you read about. He sort of eats people up for breakfast, and he thought that I was going to be, I guess, from what he imagined Genesis were, that I was going to be very arrogant and sort of. So we both approached each other very carefully, and found out that we're both very normal people that actually shared a sense of humour. And we had a great time doing the first album, and because of that, we did the second, and then I went on the road with him.
What prompted you to do that?
On tour? Well, because he asked me.
Are you a workaholic or something, though? I mean, you've got so many things of your own on the go.
Sure, if someone asks me to do something and I can fit it in, I'll do it. Because I also wanted to help him and be part of his return, if you like, to America. Because, you know, Zeppelin were enormous in America. And it's just been interesting for me to be around watching from the drum kit again, you know, just playing the drums. I could have a few drinks before the gig, didn't have to worry about what I was going to say to the audience, you know. Just had to stand there and play the drums, or sit there and play the drums, which was perfect.
Do you take criticism very much to heart? You're very
yes.
intense and serious about things.
No, I'm not serious about things. I listen to criticism, and I read criticism, and criticism I can take, but purely personal, sort of libelous almost stuff. It has nothing to do with music. I just don't understand.
Because you reacted pretty strongly to one of the music papers a few years ago who really dug into you, I believe.
Well, yeah, you see, the situation with that was that we'd just done a concert in Philadelphia with Elvis Costello and Blondie and a flock of seagulls. And there was a letter in the Melody Maker saying how great Elvis was, and the journalist, Adam Sweeting, replied, "It's a pity more people don't think like you, then Elvis wouldn't have to debase himself by supporting Genesis." So I wrote to him saying, listen, I know for a fact, because I met Elvis a couple of times around that time, and I knew a couple of the guys in his band, I knew for a fact that Elvis was not, he actually quite liked the idea of actually seeing the band and actually having that kind of different music on one bill, you know. So I wrote back to them saying that, and so I in no uncertain terms, I told them what I thought of them. And then I got a lot of letters back accusing me of being, you know, an egotistical rock star, you know, probably driving white Rolls Royce. And in fact, I read those letters on a tube train, you know. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. Chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce, and here I am on the tube, you know. So anyway, this went backwards and forwards. I eventually got a postcard from Elvis saying, you know, I think it's fantastic what's been going on. I mean, you know, you're quite right, and there are a lot of, you know, that I don't understand them. And I sent them, as the last word, I sent them the postcard, and I said, listen, this is what happened, let's forget it, shall we? And the only thing they could really think to do was print my address. So basically I got, you know, I mean, I get letters from people, just Phil Collins, Guildford, you know. And now I was getting accurately addressed letters. So it's just that kind of small-mindedness in journalism, it just annoys me because it has nothing to do with music. There's a lot of it, and a lot of it with the NME, and Julie Burchill, Paul Morley, just basically venomous and very personal. That has nothing to do with music. I mean, you know, criticising music, that's there for everyone to criticise. But the ugliest man since George Orwell. Yes, the ugliest man since George Orwell, I was called. And then just recently, a man who's looks like he's got a stocking over his head when he hasn't. Don't put my picture on the wall was one of my lyrics. Don't put my picture on the wall. I wouldn't put his picture on the wall. It would scare the cat. I've had all kinds of weird things, and I remember them all, as you can tell. Now it just pisses me off, to be honest. You can edit that out, can't you?
If You Can't Hurry Love, which was absolutely wonderful and illustrated that you don't have to go totally overboard to make a great video.
Videos, I think, should be just, I think the simplest ideas are the best. And I wanted one that was basically, like the song was, a replica of the 60s version. And it was a replica, it wasn't meant to be a new version of it. I wanted to do like an old Motown video with everyone's trousers too short and the suits are a little, you know, not right, quite the right fit. So we went ahead and did that. In 6 hours we did that video. and it would look as if it was more complicated because there was 3 of me, and you'd think syncing it up, but it was so easy to make, and people still remember it because they haven't got the girl with the whip, you know, and all these sort of props and other stuff that goes on, which has no relevance to the song. So,
Mama.
Mama. Now, well, the idea of the lyric behind that, which was my lyric, was this young boy who has an infatuation with an elderly hooker. I got the idea actually from Moon's a Balloon with David Niven, when he talks quite for a long time in the early part of the book about how he used to love this prostitute. So we just tried to get the mood. The mood of the song was basically South American, and we tried to get the heat in the video. We just wanted to try to create an atmosphere with the thing, and I think we sort of succeeded to a large extent. It should make you sort of sweat a bit when you watch it.
After Mama, which was very intense and quite menacing, you had quite a wacky time with Illegal Alien, didn't you?
Yeah, we came for a bit of stick with that as well. Funnily enough, though, in America, the stations it was being played the most on was on the border. So it didn't actually offend the Mexicans. It offended everybody else that felt guilty about offending the Mexicans. So it was just Illegal Aliens generally, you know, the fact that, well, there it is an abuse sometimes, you know, sort of to just nip over the border and to take everything you can and nip back. But we tried to do it with a humorous, you know, attitude towards it, because what I like about the Police videos, for instance, was that they always had the humour, and I think that, I mean, I'm a big comedy fan anyway. The humour, people don't think Hit Genesis have any humour at all, so I was very keen on trying to get everybody to just project that, you know. I mean, it's not my band or nothing, I mean, it's just that we talk about it and we were just trying to get that kind of thing over.